Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, this video is all about language cert academic examination. So, some of you have requested a short description or know-how about this kind of examination. So, I'm preparing one for the language cert for the academics. Academics. So there are two versions. One is academic, one is general. Academics is usually for the respective institutions, academic institutions who have requested to test your knowledge as an English language, and they mention a minimum score that they are looking for. Okay, so general. So there are, as you know, that it is divided into two parts. This test. One is the listening and the listening, reading, and writing, and the third one is speaking. Sorry, fourth one is speaking. So two parts: listening, reading, and writing usually happens together, and then speaking happens separately. All right, so this is an official document that I have taken from the LanguageCert website. For the listening, the general listening tips are: you will hear every listening task twice. It is important to understand that you will hear it twice. Use the first listening to answer as many questions as you can, and use the second to complete your answers. If you manage to answer all questions on the first listening, use the second ones for the check. You will be given some time to read through the question set. Familiarize yourself with what you are required to do and make predictions. Example about the content. This will help you perform better. The third is the answers to the questions will always appear in the listening text in the same order as the questions are asked. So that will guide you as to which section the answers appear in. So this one is important. There's a sequence. So the answers to the questions will always appear in the listening text in the same order as the questions are asked. It is not going to be a haphazard scenario that it will be a sequence. So as and when you are listening, you will get the answers. The answers of the questions will be in a sequence as and when you are listening. It will not be a crisscross fashion. This is an important part. Another important thing is pay attention to the speaker's tone of voice, as this may be helpful in answering the question. For example, do they sound happy, frustrated, curious, etc.? For example, will you be able to come tomorrow? Well, let me try. Second variation is, will you be able to come tomorrow? Yes, I'll definitely try. So you see the tone, you see the intent. If you understand the tone well, you will understand the intent about the speaker as well. Well, let me try is something the respondent is not comfortable with, or the respondent is not confident with. Well, the second one is, yes, I'll definitely try. It has a whole different meaning altogether. Last is, remember, you're not required to understand every single word you will hear. If you do not know the answer to a question, make your best guess. This is also important. Do not leave anything unattended. Part 2 is, in part 2, you will be asked to listen to 5 conversations and identify specific aspects. Example, the speaker's main ideas, opinions, feelings, attitudes. There are 2 multiple choice questions for each. Okay, so what we initially discussed is part 1, wherein, just a second. Yeah, sorry. Part 1 is this, wherein in part 1 you will be asked to listen to 7 short, unfinished. Let me minimize this. In part 1, you will be asked to listen to 7 short, unfinished conversations.
Step 1. Open File menu near OBS.
So in part 1, if you can see, you have seven short unfinished conversations, and choose the best continuation or completion of the dialogue. The conversations are set in various contexts between students and lecturer, between student and lecturer, students and admin official, and there is no multiple choice questions for each. So tips for this is there will be two speakers in these two conversations. So listen carefully for the two different voices so you know which speaker is speaking at which point. So there will not be any demarcation as such that who is speaking. You need to understand the difference in their voice so as to understand who is speaking what. If there are any words you don't understand during the first listening, try to guess these from the context or wait for the second listening. It is important. Now comes the part 2 types of test, wherein in part 2 you will be asked to listen 5 conversations and identify specific aspects. Example, the speaker's main ideas, opinions, feelings, attitudes. There are 2 multiple choice questions for each. Part 2 is MCQ. Tips. There are always 2 speakers in these conversations, so listen carefully for the 2 different voices so you know which speaker is speaking at which point. And also second point says you might want to use the first listening to answer the questions and the second listening to focus on the second question. Even if you answer both questions during the first listening, always listen carefully again to check your answer. So you will be given you will be hearing the conversation twice. So please make use of that second listening voice as well. Part 3 of listening test is, in part 3 you will be asked to listen to a monologue. Monologue means one speaker only and extract key information to complete a set of notes. There are 7 gaps to complete with between 1 and 3 words. So it should be 1 and 3 words and 7 gaps. You will be given 30 seconds to look at the notes before the listening begins. So skim, read the notes and think about what kind of information might go into each gap. All right, so you'll be given 30 seconds to look at the notes before listening so that you get an idea which are the blank spaces that needs to be filled by the conversation. So skim, read the notes and think about what kind of information might go into each gap. Second point says the exact words for each gap will appear in the listening. The exact words for each gap will appear in the listening, so there is no need to paraphrase. Just write what you hear. This is important. Exact word for each gap will appear in the listening, so just write that word. Do not waste any time writing more than 3 words, as you won't receive any additional marks for this. Maximum 3 words. Part 4 is, in part 4 you will be asked to listen to a conversation between 2 speakers and answer 6 multiple choice questions. Okay, what are these? You will be given 1 minute to look at the questions before the listening begins. So skim, read the questions and possible answers so you know what to listen out for. Again, you will be given the document first. Have a look at this before attempting these. Going in those 30 seconds before attempting to answer. As you will hear a conversation dense with information, you may need to disregard some of it. कुछ information आपकी ऐसी होगी जिसको आपको confusions पैदा करने के लिए दी गई है, उनको discard करना है. Just discard them off completely because these informations, extra informations आपको इसलिए दी गई है ताकि आप confusions में रहें. So choose selectively selectively which information to be entered. Note that the conversation will revolve around a topical issue. Okay. एक बारी I'll just repeat that. Listening, you will hear, हर एक conversation को आप 2 बारी सुनेंगे. Use the first listening to answer as many, जितना आप कर सकते हो उतना कर दें. दूसरे आंसर्स में आप बचे हुए क्वेश्चंस को फिल करें, या फिर आप सेकंड लिसनिंग में, अगर आपने फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में ही सारे आंसर्स दे दिए तो सेकंड लिसनिंग को यूज करें आंसर्स को चेक करने के लिए. You will be given some time to read through the question set, familiarize yourself with what you require to do and make predictions. आपको पहले ही 30 seconds के लिए नोट्स दे दिए जाएंगे जिसमें आपको अपने वर्ड्स फिल करने हैं आफ्टर लिसनिंग द कंटेक्स्ट. उस 30 सेकेंड्स में एक बार उसे स्किम थ्रू ज़रूर कर लें, और जहाँ पर भी आपको स्पेस अवेलेबल है फिल करने के लिए उसको मार्क करके, सो दैट व्हेन यू लिसन दैट कन्वर्सेशंस यू नो कि कहाँ पे क्या एंटर करना है. जो एक इम्पॉर्टेंट बात ये हमने डिस्कस कर लिया है कि सीक्वेंस सेम रहेगा. ऐसा नहीं होगा कि सीक्वेंस आगे पीछे. द आंसर्स टू द क्वेश्चंस विल ऑलवेज अपीयर इन द लिसनिंग टेक्स्ट. सो अगर आपको लग रहा है कि आप क्वेश्चन नंबर 2 का आंसर नहीं ढूंढ पाए हैं एंड यू रियलाइज कि क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 आ गया है, सो सेकंड के ऊपर ज़्यादा वेट ना करें, थर्ड फोर्थ करते हुए आगे बढ़ जाएं, क्योंकि इसका मतलब ये है कि सेकंड का आंसर उस कन्वर्सेशन में जा चुका है. मे बी यू आर नॉट एबल टू कैच इट. सो इन दैट केस move forward and attempt all the remaining questions. It is important to understand the speaker's tone of voice. उसके लहजे को, उसके जो इंटेंशन है उसको समझने की, उसके मूड को समझने की ज़रूर इसमें कोशिश करें. पार्ट 1 अगेन. इन पार्ट 1 you will be asked to listen to 7 short unfinished conversations. 7 short unfinished conversations and choose the best continuation or completion of the dialogue. The conversation are set in various contexts. Example between student and lecturer, and admin officials, etc. So 7 short questions is there and you need to fill it. I hope that is clear. जो गौर करने वाली बात होगी वो ये रहेगी कि आपको कोई बताएगा नहीं कि अब स्टूडेंट बोल रहा है या अब एडमिन ऑफिशियल या लेक्चरर. यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड द डिफरेंस इन वॉइस. आई होप दैट इज क्लियर. नाउ if there are any words you don't understand during the first listening, try to guess these from the context or wait for the second listening. Second listening is extremely important. Okay. Part 2, you will be asked to listen to 5 conversations and identify specific aspects. Example, the speaker's main ideas, opinions, feelings, attitudes. There are 2 multiple choice questions for each. Tips: there are always 2 speakers in these conversations, so listen carefully for the 2 different voices so you know which speaker is speaking at which point. And second, you might want to use the first listening to answer the first questions and the second listening to focus on the second question. Even if you answer both questions during the first listening, always listen carefully again to check your answers. Okay, now come to part 3, which says it's a monologue. No conversation between 2 persons, and with that monologue you are given first 30 seconds to skim through the notes so that you know आपको पता चल जाएगा कि आपको क्या लिखना है एंड एग्जैक्ट वर्ड्स फॉर ईच गैप, इसलिए पैराफ्रेज करने की जरूरत नहीं है. लुक फॉर द एग्जैक्ट वर्ड्स टू गेट फिल्ड एंड नो मोर देन 3 words are required. Part 4, conversation between two speakers and answers 6 multiple choice questions. 6 MCQ आपको इसमें आंसर करना है and you will be given a minute again to look at the questions before the listening, similarly as was in part 3. In part 3 it was for 30 seconds. Here you will be given a 1 minute. 1 मिनट आपको दिया जाएगा. आप सरसरी निगाह से उसे उन क्वेश्चंस को एक दफ़ा देख लें, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, सो दैट यू नो कि आपको किन चीज़ों को रखना है और किन चीज़ों को डिस्कार्ड करना है. और इस तरीके के क्वेश्चंस में आपको बहुत सारी ऐसी इंफॉर्मेशन दी गई होगी जो आपको रिक्वायर्ड नहीं है, वेस्ट है. सो डिस्कार्ड द अननेसेसरी गिवन इंफॉर्मेशन. Okay, now comes to reading. Listen, we have covered the listening part. In reading, general tips is read any given text once first to get the main idea and only then attempt answering the questions. Important. एक दफ़ा उसको ज़रूर पढ़ ले, एक बार स्किम थ्रू ज़रूर हो जाए. Try not to get stuck on individual words that you do not understand if they do not interfere with the key points of the text. Remember that the answers to the questions in the text are always in the same order as the questions are asked. ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. सेम सीक्वेंस में रहेंगे क्वेश्चंस एंड आंसर्स. सो अगर आपको ऐसा लग रहा है कि आपको क्वेश्चन नंबर 4 का आंसर मिल गया है, क्वेश्चन नंबर 3 और 2 का नहीं मिला है, तो इसका मतलब कहीं ना कहीं ये है कि वो उनका आंसर्स पहले के कहीं वर्ड्स या कन्वर्सेशन में है, उससे पहले के जो लाइन्स है या पैराग्राफ है उसको समझने की ज़्यादा कोशिश करें. If you do not know the answer, please make your best guess. It is also important. Let's understand part 1A. In part 1A, you will be asked to read six sentences and replace one word in bold. From that sentence with another word without changing the meaning of the sentence. You will have 4 words to choose from. You will have 4 words to choose from for each sentence. I think that's pretty clear. जो भी बोल्ड में जो वर्ड होगा उसको आपको रिप्लेस करना है ऐसे वर्ड्स को सिलेक्ट करके जिससे मीनिंग ऑफ द सेंटेंस चेंज ना हो. और आपके पास 4 ऑप्शंस होंगे, उनमें से एक को आपको चूज करना है. सो हर एक सेंटेंस के आगे आपके पास 4 ऑप्शंस होंगे और उस एक सेंटेंस में एक वर्ड होगा जो बोल्ड में है. आपको उस बोल्ड वर्ड को रिप्लेस करना है 4 गिवन ऑप्शन से विदाउट चेंजिंग द सेंटेंस. Sentence must not change. The meaning of the sentence must not change. Tips: some of the words in the option list will have a very similar meaning to the words in the sentences but will not be exactly right in the given context. आपको ऐसा लग सकता है कि वो एक जैसा है मगर हमें उस कंटेक्स्ट में देखना है कि वो एक जैसा तो है मगर मीनिंग ना चेंज हो. Say the sentence in your head replacing the word with your chosen answer to see if it sounds correct. Provide an answer if you are not sure it is a correct one. Please attempt. Do not leave anything blank. Okay, let's go to part 1B. Part 1B You will be asked to read a short gapped text and choose the correct word to fill each gap. There are 5 gaps with a multiple choice answer for each. In part 1b, you will be asked to read a short gapped text and choose the correct word to fill the gap. Tips: read the whole text first, including the title, before you attempt to fill any gap, then get a feel for what kind of text it is. Okay. If there are any words you do not understand, try to guess from these contexts using the words before and after as clues. The options will be the same parts of a speech: example, nouns, verbs, adverbs. So you won't be able to rely on grammatical clues. You will need to think more about meaning and common collocations. Read the whole text through again once you have filled all the gaps as a final check. We'll have some examples again. Reading part 2. In part 2, you will be asked to read a longer gapped text and choose the correct sentence to fill each gap. There are 7 sentences to choose from. Tips: read the whole text first, including the title, before you attempt to fill any gaps and get a feel for what kind of text it is. If there are any words you don't understand, try to guess these from the context using the words before and after as clues. Pay attention to the subject of the sentence to be inserted, as this will often link back to the sentence before in the text where there is a pronoun. Ensure this matches to the subject it is referring to. So you'll get a better idea once we discuss some of the sample questions. As is obvious, read the whole text again so that you get to know whether it's a final answer or not. Part 3. In part 3, you will be asked to read 4 short texts on a common theme and decide which text gives you the answers to the 7 questions that follow. Again, tips are: skim read the text first, paying attention to the key points that are made in each. Then read the questions and scan the text, looking for the specific information that address each questions. After responding to all questions, check your answers once again. Part 4 is you will be asked to read a longer, more complex text and answer 6 MCQs about it. So here the important thing is that you may have exact words or you may not have. In that case, look for paraphrases and synonyms, etc. This is extremely important in this part 4. Okay, let's move ahead. Then comes writing, general writing tips. In the writing test, part 1 carries 40% of the total marks and part 2 carries 60%. दो तरीके के एग्जाम 2 पार्ट्स में डिवाइडेड है. पार्ट 1 में 40% आपको मार्क्स मिलेंगे एंड पार्ट 2 में 60% वेटेजेस है. एंड सो बेस्ड ऑन दैट जो आपका 50 मिनट्स है उसको इस तरीके से डिवाइड करें कि 40% आप टाइम अपने पार्ट 1 को दे पाएँ और थोड़ा ज़्यादा पोर्शंस part 2 को, because उसकी वेटेज ज़्यादा है. Read the instructions carefully and key points to be covered ahead of the test. Practice part. Just a second. Ahead of the test, practice writing text of the same number of words so you get an idea of the length of the text that is required. Keep an eye of the word count throughout so that you write the minimum required. Do not write too much over the amount, as you won't receive any additional marks for this. Emphasize key points as well as expand and support relevant ideas. Avoid generic words, example good, bad, nice, etc. and use more descriptive words, example amazing, horrendous, outstanding, etc. Make sure you use a variety of cohesive devices, example and, as well, then, however, so as to clearly make the relationship between ideas and produce clear and coherent text. Always read through your text once again you have finished and spend some time improving it. That is important. Okay, in part 1 of writing, which is 40%, in part 1 you will be asked to produce a short text 150 to 200 words such as report, argument or article with an intended reader specified and covering the contents points provided. Tips: make sure you refer to all content points provided on your or you will lose mark. जितने भी आपको कंटेंट में पॉइंट्स दिए हैं इंश्योर कि आप उसको कंप्लीटली यूटिलाइज करें अपने राइटिंग में, अदरवाइज देयर विल बी सम डिडक्शंस. एड्रेस देम वन बाय वन एंड इन ऑर्डर टू इंश्योर दे आर ऑल कवर्ड. आप एक एक करके उन सबको इंक्लूड करें. इफ in a sequence or not, that depends on you. Plan your answer in few minutes. Putting down some key points example will give you a better structure. थोड़ा सा टाइम लेके पहले इसको स्ट्रक्चर ज़रूर कर ले और उस पॉइंट के ऊपर एक बैकग्राउंड. इसमें एक अच्छा तरीका ये होता है कि थोड़ा सा जो भी आपको टॉपिक दिया गया है उसमें पॉइंट्स जो इंक्लूड करने हैं उसको इस तरीके से कवर करें कि जैसे थोड़ा सा बैकग्राउंड, देन प्रेजेंट एंड देन फ्यूचर with a conclusion or recommendation at the end. That's how you plan these kind of writings. Pay attention to the style of writing and who you are writing to. Adjust the tone accordingly. And then comes part 2. In part 2, you will be asked to produce 250 words, which is your 60%. So allocate your time more over here than to part 1. Okay, it will be a formal piece of discursive writing on an academic subject. Address the topic in a balanced and yet persuasive manner. Plan your answer in few minutes. Putting down some keywords, etc. will help you better structure your text. Pay attention to the style of writing required and who you are writing to, and adjust the tone accordingly. It's important. And last comes speaking. As I mentioned initially during the start of the session, reading, writing, and listening are together in one go, and speaking happens separately because there will be an interlocutor who will come and ask you some questions. So you have to block separate time for speaking. Speaking, the general speaking tips are: in case you do not hear a question well, you can ask the interlocutor to repeat the question. You will not be penalized for it. अगर आप उनकी कोई बात समझ में नहीं आ रही है, आप you do not have the enough clarity about what is being asked, और अगर आप इस एग्ज़ाम को रिमोटली घर से दे रहे हैं तो हो सकता है कि कुछ लेटेंसी भी आए इंटरनेट. In that case, interlocutor will tell you to close the connection. He or she will close the exam and then will tell you to reattempt or relog in using another data point, maybe your hotspot from phone or from any other internet resource. There is a software which is known as Shield that needs to be installed before you go for the test if you are doing it from home. Okay, no, there are no right or wrong responses, and what matters on your test day is your English, not your opinions. So for example, if someone has given you, if the interlocutor is has asked about your preferences of dresses, or you prefer formal or informal, or what is your choice of dress, in that case there are no right and wrong answers. You can say you are a man of fast fashion and you prefer buying clothes who are not that costly because you believe in remaining in the latest trends and stuff. Or you can say that you prefer to have formals because they do not go out of fashion very soon and they are pretty standard formats for them. So there are no right and wrong as such. They are just looking for your communication or command over the language. Point number 3, say so that you can even more effectively interact with the interlocutor, know a few turn taking techniques. how to give personal information, how to express views, how to open or close a conversation, etc. Prior to your test day, make sure you watch our mock test video so that you exactly know what to expect. There are a lot of videos that have been uploaded by the LanguageCert team on their official YouTube channel. That is going to be extremely helpful. Please have a look at them. Part 1. In part 1, you will initially be asked to spell your name and give your country of origin. Then you will be asked to answer a few questions on a contemporary issues. Emphasis will be on a personal response. Try to avoid rehearsed speech when asked expected questions about yourself or family so that your responses sound natural. Obviously, also try to avoid dry or one word answers to the questions the interlocutor will ask. So मैं इसको थोड़ा सा explain करता हूँ. Normally ऐसा होता है as the examination starts and once you have completed all your checks and which includes your जो आपका ID, passport and stuff जो भी दिखाना, उसके बाद जब test start होता है, the first thing the interlocutor will ask is, पहला question they will ask is, can you spell your last name? In that case, you will spell your last name. In my case, it is Baghel. So I'll say my last name. I have not seen using phonetics like B for Bravo, A for Alpha, G for Golf, H for Hotel, E for Echo, and L for London. I have not seen that. So I prefer following the same pattern, which is just use letters. Keep your rate of speech slow and low and speak it carefully and with clarity. Second question interlocutor will ask is, where are you from and where do you live? So in my case, I said I stay in XYZ city and it is in this country. So for example, I stay in Delhi, which is the capital of India, and it is also the political hub of the Indian system, and this city is very 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 old and stuff like that. So keep it short. However, it should not be like this. Oh, I stay in Delhi or Delhi. This should not be the right answer. The right answer is city name and with a little bit of information around it, because the intent of this exam is to check your quality of communication. I hope that's clear. Part 2, you will be asked to participate in 2 or 3 situations which replicate real life scenarios. Example, giving advice, apologizing, giving instructions. Tips: do not forget that it is interlocutor who initiates the first interaction and the candidate, which is you, who initiates the second one. Make sure you reply appropriately in terms of language or tone, as the interlocutor may, for example, pretend to be one of your classmates or a university accommodation officer. Depending on the situation, you will need to speak in a more or less formal manner. Note that there may be a third situation if time allows. In that case, following the instruction given, it will be initiated by the interlocutor or by you. And then comes part 3. In part 3, you will be asked to read a short passage out loud and answer a few follow-up questions. You will be given 20 seconds of your preparation time to look at the passage before you read it out loud. Your text will remain on the screen while you answer the questions set. Tips: use 20 seconds of preparation time to skim read and the text and get a sense of the topic and tone. Pay attention to the text punctuation and use it to guide you. Don't worry if you have never heard a word before and do not know how to pronounce it. Make an educated guess and move on. Okay, and part 4, which is, in part 4, you will be asked to make a presentation. Give your opinion on a topic chosen by the interlocutor. You will be given 1 minute of preparation time and will be allowed to make some notes. You are allowed to use a blank piece of paper. You will be required to talk about the topic for 2 minutes. Written notes may prove as helpful as mental notes during the 1 minute of preparation time. Feel free to decide what helps you more. You may imagine a situation or a story if you like. There is no need for it to be true. Before your test, practice talking for about 2 minutes on a topic so you get a feel for how long this is. Keep an eye on the clock as you talk and be ready to add another point if you're not quite at the 2 minutes mark. If you need a little time to think about a question you are asked, don't just sit in silence. Use phrases like, "That's an interesting question. Let me think. Give me a second chance to think about that. Let me see." Okay, now let's part one. What's your name and which country you're from? As I said, you can say, "My name is uh, XYZ. My last name is," with you have to speak the letters carefully and with clarity. When they say which country you're from or where do you live, you can say, "I stay in Dubai," which is the a very fancy city of not only of UAE but of Middle East. This city is quite vibrant. It is very it houses many nationalities within it, and it's like a global village, uh, global world heritage and global world village in one city. Something like that. It should not be only Dubai. Part two, there will be a conversation which will be initiated by the interlocutor. So, for example, they may say, "Well, Aj, we will be going for. We had planned for a movie today evening, but you are not able to come. So I'm going to start the conversation, and you are not able to join in the movie today. So what kind of conversation you can expect, or what kind of conversation will flow?" That is what part two is about. Part three is when you are short passage out. You need to read a short passage out loud and answer a few follow-up questions. You will be given 20 seconds for the preparation time to look at the passage before you read it out loud. Your text will remain on the screen. So for example, we are going to have a college fest, and that college fest, what do you think we should have? And you will have some prompts like college fest. It should have students and faculties both. It should be somewhere in out in a professional atmosphere. So this kind of conversation you need to carry on with the interlocutor. Part four is about a kind of extempore. They tell you a topic, for example, how your family has supported you. In that case, 1 minute will be given to sort of prepare your points, and then you have to speak for 2 minutes. Normally what happens that when you are speaking, you will fall short of sentences, you will fall short of words before 2 minutes. It may so happen. So in that case, please keep a watch on the timings, keep a watch, and manage it in a way that you are not stopping the conversation or this monologue before 2 minutes. This is important. Otherwise, it will be a half attempted question. So, this is it. I'll prepare a few more scenarios when we discuss one by one about language cert. Thank you. I I hope you have enjoyed it, and I have made it a good mix of Hindi, Urdu, or English both, so that you understand the context or what is required in this examination. But my recommendation is practice, practice, and practice. uh, it may so happen that you are extremely good at it, this language, and you have been frequently using it, but then sometimes you need to sort of prepare yourself from the point of view of the examination. So in that case, I would say, even if you are if extremely good at it, take some time out, spend a day to practice and to understand the nitty-gritties of this examination. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye bye.